Today we'll be making another Sicilian dish, Borlotti beans with asparagus pasta. Here they are. They are in water and they've been soaking overnight for approximately 12 hours. The reason why the water is cloudy is because I've added a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda to soften them up when they cook. I'm going to rinse them, wash them, and then I'll show you how I cook them. Before soaking them, when they were dry, they weighed 250 grams. They've now grown to 478 grams, almost doubled. And if I just show you what they looked like before, and then you can see the before and after. Here, I'll put it against my worktop here. So this is what they were like last night. You can see that they've almost doubled. But also what I find interesting is the color. If you look at the color of the bean before it went in water, it's a very dark, almost violet or very dark aubergine eggplant color. Whereas by the time it's actually been soaked overnight, it goes into this beautiful brown color, which is obviously an indication that they've soaked. And they almost double, and they do not regain the original size before we dry them, because there are air pockets and the water cannot replace the air pockets, but they are 90% there. To dry them, by the way, if you are lucky enough to grow Borlotti beans or any beans, you got two options. You can leave them in the plant and do not pick them, and within 4 to 5 weeks they will dry. You will see that they move inside the pod and the pod will become very brittle. Or you can pick them when they're fresh and you can cook them straight away without soaking them, of course. But if you want to dry them yourself, just put them in a cool dry room temperature. If it is summer, it will be anything between 20 to 30 degrees. And you will find that within a couple of weeks they will dry and they'll become just like this. And you will know that they're dry because you can not necessarily indent them with your nails, or if you were to try to bite them, they will split immediately enough. If they don't, they're not dry. So that's what you can do if you've got Borlotti beans or any beans, as I said. This is a very simple recipe, but to ensure that I extract the best flavor from my beans, I'm going to be a little bit more strategic today. So I always start with a bay leaf at the bottom, regardless if I'm cooking lentils or beans. And I'm going to top it up now with some cold water. Ensure that you use cold water, otherwise they can split. And I'm going to stop about an inch, just an inch above the top of my beans. And I'll turn this on maximum until it starts boiling. I want to make sure that the water where I cook my beans is very concentrated today, because I will be using some of the water when I mix my beans with the asparagus later, so that it retains a good degree of creaminess. But then I will be topping up the water with more water to cook the pasta, so that the pasta will cook in the same water where the beans will have cooked, and it will inherit some of the flavor. And by the way, while we wait, I found a little pod which Julie kept with some beans, so you can see that they can also stay in the pod after you pick the pod, and you achieve a very similar result to what I've shown you earlier. So that's another option, to pick the pods and leave them to dry without having to open them, and open them once they're dry. But you can hear them, this is what I meant, you can hear them rattling inside the pod. And in no time at all, as there is only little water, they've started to boil. So I'll place the lid on and I'll turn the temperature down to simmer for approximately 35 to 40 minutes. The time will change depending on the sort of beans you are boiling, of course, but do ensure that you test them and that they are cooked, because if they are undercooked, they will give you tummy ache, and if they are overcooked, they might disintegrate. So just test them and you will know that they're ready. So I'll see you in a little while. My beans are cooked and they've been cooling down for a few hours. Time to deal with the asparagus. Here they are. You can see that in my case today, they are all of different size. For example, there is this stem over here, which is considerably chunkier than this one over here, almost twice the size. So if you are dealing with asparagus similar to mine, you might have to deal with each stem individually. And the likelihood is that the chunkier they are, the woodier they are towards the bottom. So just feel it until you get to a point where it bends nicely. And this area here, you can actually safely trim with a potato peeler, just like this, so that the woodier part of the asparagus is removed first of all. And continuing with the same stem, I'm going to find now the area where it's really hard, and I will remove with a knife, and this can be discarded, whereas I'm going to keep this, but I will be cooking the tips separate to the rest of the asparagus. So I always use my hand and roughly just under 10 centimeters I'll cut it here, and over here I've got now two different type of texture, because this is really soft and this is a little bit harder, but still very good to eat. With this part here, I'm going to slice it in little circles like this, and I'll start with relatively chunky circles at the beginning, as they're going to be cooking quicker. But then as I get closer towards the bottom of my remaining part of the asparagus, the circle will begin to be slightly smaller, so that they all cook at the same time, just like this. So from one stem I've got two different textures, as I said. This is left whole and this is in little circles, but a different size. So I'll do the rest and then I can carry on. With the next ingredient, you got choices. You can either use half a leek, which is what I will be using today, or if you like a medium onion. I'm going to use only half, as otherwise it will be taking over the dish, but I'm going to retain this part for tomorrow. I will be using it in a soup for potato and leek, and this is what I'm going to be using, the softer part, as it's going to be a little bit sweeter. Of course, you can also replace leek with onions if you like. You can use either a green, a red or a white onion, entirely up to you, the choice. If you were to go for a red onion, it's slightly better, as they are slightly sweeter than the white ones. But I'm just going to slice the leek next. Perfect. So next in line is going to be a clove of garlic. You have seen me often retaining the skin in my garlic, and today I'm going to do that also. It does actually release a little flavor, and somebody asked me if it does actually go when you cook it. Yes, it does disintegrate, so do not worry, no fear. But obviously I've washed it beforehand. And also I've got here a little chili pepper. This is red. I removed the little top, but I will be slicing it into little pieces. Again, if you don't like spicy food, obviously do not put it in. But if you do like a little bit of spiciness, and bearing in mind that this is mild, add it in, as it will be a nice and pleasant additional layer. And talking about layers, by the way, in terms of spiciness, I will also be complementing my red chili pepper with some red chili flakes. They add a different aromatic layer, and they will be complementing the red chili pepper very nicely. So I'm now ready to start putting together the base for my soffritto. Ensure that you've got a large enough saucepan. I'll turn it on, and I'll start the base with a little olive oil. And garlic goes in first, so that it starts releasing all of its flavor. Garlic is beginning to sizzle. I'm keeping the temperature on medium, by the way, otherwise it will burn and it'll become bitter. And I'll start by adding the sliced asparagus first, immediately followed by the sliced leek, sliced chili pepper, and as I mentioned before, a little pinch of the chili flakes. Be careful, just a little, otherwise it will be a little bit too hot. Remember to keep it on a medium temperature, and I'll leave this to sizzle together for about a minute. I'm now using my potato peeler to remove a little bit of the zest from a lemon, about half of the surface, something like this. Ensure that you gently scratch it, as you do not want to remove the white pith, as it's a little bit bitter, so just the yellow stuff. And I can now add the rest of my asparagus, the tips. Time to drain the beans, and remember to not throw the water away, so I'm going to firstly put them over here through this little sieve, and I'm going to add them to the rest of the mix. As I mentioned before, this stock is highly concentrated, so I'm going to pinch a couple of ladles and add them to the beans and the rest of the vegetables. And the rest of the stock can go back in the same saucepan, but this time I will be topping it up with more hot water ready for my pasta in a little while. And of course over here I'll mix everything together, but I'm going to be very gentle, as I do not want to damage the tips of the asparagus, and I'll wait until the beans reach cooking temperature alongside the rest of the vegetables. Obviously this water is considerably starchy, because the beans will have released some of their starches and proteins. I just added half a teaspoon of salt, followed by a little pepper, and it will make my sauce considerably creamier. So I'll cover the saucepan and I'll turn it down on to medium now, and in the meantime I'll go on with the pasta. A little salt in my water and I'm ready to add my pasta. Today I'm going for conchiglie, which is shells over here, you can see them. It was a 50-50 balance between conchiglie and macaroni, but bearing in mind that the beans will find their way inside the shells, I like that, so I went for shells. But macaroni would also have been a great choice, or any short pasta would be perfect with this meal. But if you want, you can also use long pasta, that will be fine. Although I think you will find that it's easier to eat with a spoon, so you can see where I'm going, but entirely up to you. I'll finish cooking my pasta over here with the beans. So whenever I do that, I always reserve a little bit of the cooking water so that I can top up any potential need of water later. And also this is obviously rich in starches and the flavor of the beans. So just reserve a little mug just in case. You can always throw it away, of course. Pasta is almost cooked, has got a good bite to it. Here it is, and I can now add it to the rest of my beans. Let's have a look and see if we need any more water. Yeah, I think a little water will not harm, so I'm going to add it now. You can do this with potatoes, by the way, not just with pasta if you wanted to, in which case it is unlikely that you're going to need any more water. Obviously the pasta will continue absorbing water because of its nature, but potatoes they wouldn't, so just keep some back. And if you were to use potatoes, you can cook them alongside the vegetables from the very beginning. No need to cook them separately. I would definitely chop them in little pieces, maybe 1 centimeter cube, and place the lid on so that they will cook alongside everything else. But the good news is that this is ready, and I can now serve a portion and taste it. If it smells good, the likelihood is that it tastes good, and this smells really, really good. So there you go. I get a little bit of the broth also. I'm now arranging a few of the tips on top of my plate so that it looks nice, and I'll continue with a little olive oil at the very top, like this. And a very small amount of my lemon zest, again using my potato peeler trick. And the very last touch is going to be a small amount of parsley at the very top, just like this. And that will complement the flavor of the asparagus, but also will go very well with the lemon. And the beans, of course. Parsley and beans, they love each other. And of course, before you tuck in, if you wish, you can also add some grated cheese like Parmesan or Grana Padano, but I'm not going to today. I'm going to leave as it is. Oh, it's really velvety. I think the combination from the leek, the beans, and of course the asparagus has made the dish very elegant and has got a silky texture and beautiful combination of flavor. And the chili pepper or the chili flakes just kicked in. They're quite nice actually, not too bad. Lovely. Hopefully you make it, and if you do, let me know how you get on. Thank you for watching. Ciao, ciao.